All right. So I was inspired by a YouTuber by the name of Cobweb's channel, which I do enjoy. I enjoy the top tens lists he does on horror movies and things like that, and horror reviews, giving out a lot of like horror movies even I haven't heard of. And I was watching one of his videos recently talking about top 10 like Gothic films. And it made me kind of wonder for a second, like, what does count as what makes like a Gothic film? And I'm not talking like, The Crow or, something with like a lot of leather and tight pants. Don't threaten me with a good time. Um, but I what I mean by that is that like Gothic architecture, like Gothic atmosphere, things like that. Like the classic Universal monster movies had that kind of Gothic, high atmosphere kind of storytelling. So, um, yeah. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about in this video is what makes a Gothic film? Like what counts and what should be counted as a Gothic film. Now, the big thing, I think, with all Gothic films is atmosphere. I do think atmosphere helps, wide spaces, architecture from the 1700s or even like 1600s, crumbling castles, dark manors, things like that. Does the film need to be in black and white? Not really. I don't think it needs to. But again, the major thing you have to stress with a film like this is, with films like these is atmosphere. And you have like Del Toro movies, all of them could be outside of Pacific Rim, could literally all be Gothic films, like especially Crimson Peak. Like when you talk about like Del Toro, Crimson, and Gothic architecture, it is 100% Crimson Peak at the peak. I would even dare say that like even the Hellboy movies fall into that, especially just how they handle atmosphere, how they handle scenery. For other film, and also another thing I would like to say as a caveat is that I think another thing that is important to note is, and some people are going to say, well, does that mean the film that you're going to be talking about, like in that case, does that mean the film has to be set in like a certain time period? Like I said with Hellboy, I don't think so. I think time period does not need to count. I think it helps. I think that's the big thing is that a time period is is a helping factor, but I think the major thing is that there is a understanding of what kind of scenes you're telling. So you could honestly do like a Gothic kind of storytelling in modern day, but I got to be honest, it does have a problem when your cell phone goes off in the middle of this dark manor. That's kind of the problem, isn't it? Is that, I think that's not a killing factor for, a Gothic film, but I think period pieces do help. I mean, look at Robert Eggers. He said you'll never see a car in one of his movies ever, or a cell phone. That's kind of the big deal, is that you have to have like period pieces help, but I don't think that's like putting it in modern times is a problem. I think one that really did help was what was it? I think The Orphanage is a solid form of modern day goth architecture. I think also that the other major factor is that you have to understand the time period. I think that's kind of an unsung rule, is that you can't just throw a bunch of big castles and be like, oh, it's so Gothic. I think you have to have an appreciation of the times. I think you have to have a appreciation of that time. Again, going back to Eggers and Del Toro, is that and also it never hurts to be stylized. I don't think, again, going with Del Toro and to an extent Eggers, is that I think another major factor is that you can have some style to it as long as you keep that kind of architecture alive. Again, with Crimson Peak, you have that with Nosferatu. I'm talking about 22 and 2024. I think also the other driving factor is a and this is going to sound a little pretentious, which for me is like saying a lot. I think this is kind of a big deal. I think this is kind of a big thing. Um, I think another major factor that needs to come into play with these kind of films is that I really do think that one of the major points of these films is that there needs to be a you need to have the right actors. You need to have the right actors to understand it. I mean, as like we can count Dracula, of the Coppola Dracula film, this Gothic architecture, and it's very atmospheric, very beautiful. But like, and I'm not gonna shit on Keanu Reeves too hard. That's too easy. Like that's low hanging fruit. But the big thing is that you need to have like I think he even said like I overthought it. Like I overthought the British accent, and that's what killed it for me. But I think you do need actors that understand it. And while I will recommend the 2010 Wolfman movie, which I think is it walks a beautiful balance of Gothic atmosphere with kind of 1800s aesthetic, and again proving that you can have a car, you can have a car or modern cars or modern quote unquote in your Gothic film, but I think the other thing is that it like the actors themselves, man. I understand that movie, Joe Johnston did his best because he was like they started filming with a new script 3-4 weeks before filming started, and he was just thrown on board. If I had if I had a nickel for every time Joe Johnston was part of a movie that was like starting filming in less than 3 weeks away with a new script, I would have 2 nickels. Which is weird that it's happened twice. Yeah. So, for quick recommendation, but again, like I think especially with Hopkins, who did not give a single fuck, I think again actors help accentuate the scenes. But before those are just a few things. But before I go, I'm going to mention some Gothic films that I think you should check out in some case or another. Starting off with, again, 2010 Wolfman. I think it's it mixes that Gothic atmosphere, and Danny Elfman's soundtrack really helps. I know the acting can be a little harsh, but it's a solid film and way better than the recent remake. I think also a House of Legend of Hell House is a great one of Gothic atmosphere, and it is set in the 1970s. It has great form of that. The Haunting, the original 1960 film, is another classic. It's the movie that scares the hell out of me the most. The Others, I think, is a masterclass of Gothic atmosphere and slight scares, and like depending more on tension. The Woman in Black, the Daniel Radcliffe remake, and the original 1980. Yeah, there was a 1980s BBC one, which I did not know about until I watched Cobweb's channel, and then I watched it. I was like, holy shit, this is good. I would even dare say, for Gothic atmosphere, the 1970 remake of Dracula from Universal Studios with Frank Langella as Dracula. I think that one really captures a lot of great atmosphere, and I think also Nosferatu, like 2022, not assuming 1922, 2024, and the 1971. Though I think that one's fine, but it really gets the atmosphere going, and I think it really captures that. Anyway, so there you go, guys. Those are just a few things I count at, like what counts for Gothic films. But yeah, you guys tell me in the comments below, what are some criteria for you for Gothic film, for what counts as Gothic films, and what are some films you consider a Gothic film? Just comment below, let me know. Other than that, I hope y'all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.